up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back, and today we have one of our new hosts who I've been talking about for the last 2 weeks, but didn't tell you. And here he is, Brady.
That's good.
Today we're going to be doing NBA, our first ever NBA video, and it'll be NBA preseason rankings. And with that, we'll just get right to it.
All right, man. Well, we'll start off with the Magic here. I think safe to say still not a great team, but picking up Suggs in the draft and Michigan fan getting Franz. I got to be rooting for him a little bit, but I still just can't foresee this team winning that many games this year.
The 29th, we got the Thunder, lots of draft picks coming up in the next few years. And I'm really interested in to see how Josh Giddey does this year. Kind of slipped a little in the draft, and I think he's a potential Rookie of the Year candidate on this Thunder team. And this team will be interesting to see how they play out, just because they're all young with Shy too. But definitely hopeful in the years to come for the Thunder.
Rockets, man. I as a Pistons fan too, can't say too happy with Jalen Green right now, but I think we can agree. Guy's kind of a dog. Got Jacob too. Lot of good rookie potential here, but I still don't think they'll be that great. They're kind of in a rebuild phase, but I definitely think they're headed in the right direction too.
27, you got the Cavs. Kind of an interesting team. They got Jarrett Allen, and then they draft Evan Mobley. Kind of a surprise pick, but I mean, Mobley's too good of a talent to pass on. They'll make that work. But Colin Sexton, dog, Darius Garland, he's one of my favorite players in the league. I just think he's underrated, and I expect him to have another good year. But the Cavs, they just don't really have anyone else past that. The bench is pretty, I don't know, not even dry or anything. They just don't have anyone good coming off the bench.
I think they might have just got Ricky Rubio too, I think, recently as well. But like you said, I still don't think that really adds up.
I mean, that'll be good for Sexton and Garland,
right?
To learn through him. And I think Rubio kind of sees the writing on the wall anymore. He's not the guy he used to be, but definitely a good addition for the Cavs, but they won't be making too much noise this year.
The Timberwolves. I don't know about this team, man. It seems like they've had constant problems throughout the years, even when they do have talent. Andrew Wiggins, that was just kind of an unfortunate situation. But now with Karl Anthony Towns, you're really hoping that D'Lo has a great year, because I mean, if not, then they're in trouble. That's really what they're relying upon right now. But I mean, they did get Pat Bev, did get Taurean Prince, lost Rubio to the Cavs, but making some moves. I just don't think this team's going to stay too consistent this year. I don't think D'Lo is that guy.
And especially with Cat, who knows with him, he always gets injured somehow.
Definitely.
So at 25th, we got our Pistons here. I'm not saying there's high hopes this year, but I think this team has a shot as a play-in game for the playoffs, just because last year they showed that Dwayne Casey is still a great coach in managing all of that, the young guys, and they really blossomed last year. They had two all rookie guys on their team, and I expect another one with Cade Cunningham this year, the first pick, potential Rookie of the Year candidate. And this Pistons team is going to be an interesting team to watch through this year, just because, Dwayne Casey, he's already been in the NBA Finals, knows how to lead a team, and just adding Kelly Olynyk is a huge addition for Luka Garza, Isaiah Stewart, all the young guys.
Kind of a sleeper move there. It definitely puts up some numbers, especially on a young team like they are. With a bunch of young guys, they're always going to be looking for wins whenever they can get them in any way. Kelly Olynyk's been around for a little bit, might be able to show them how, and especially with Jeremy Grant coming off the year he just came off of as well. I think those two vets are really important to blossom the young guys they just recently got. Next up, we got the Kings. I'm not a big Kings guy, but I will say Davion Mitchell might be one of the next legit NBA basketball players in the league. I think this guy might honestly be a rookie of the year candidate for sure. But other than that, I don't know. Marvin Bagley, I don't think this team's really got it. But slowly, I will say that it seems like they're making moves, you know. They were getting involved in some Ben Simmons rumors and stuff like that, trying to make their team better. I just don't think anyone really wants to play in Sacramento right now.
Yeah, I think it's just, De'Aaron Fox, he's been there, what, 4 years now? I mean,
Right.
and he was supposed to be the guy to turn the franchise around, and it's been 4 years and they haven't changed anything. So I think they might need a new, just a trade like a Ben Simmons would be big for them. Just, switch it up and see what that'll bring them. But at 23rd, we got the Spurs. Kind of an interesting team last year. No one really had high hopes for them, but Greg Popovich is the coach, so you can't overlook this team. And as long as Pop is coaching, I just think the Spurs have a shot at a play-in game or the playoffs. But the girl, I can't remember what's her name, the assistant, the girl coach.
Oh, I don't know her name. I know who you're talking about though.
But she definitely is in line for the head coaching job, which will be great for the sport of NBA and, breaking all these barriers. And obviously not just because she's a woman, but she's actually a really good coach as well. She actually had a coach last year, one game, because Pop had a miss.
Yeah.
They won. And, she's undefeated in the league. So
right.
I'll be watching out for her. But to the Spurs team, ever since Manu and Paul and all of them left, they just haven't been that team, and they lost DeRozan. You just can't really expect too much from the Spurs team this year.
All right, with New Orleans, I like New Orleans. The problem is we already know Zion won't be there to start off the year, and I feel like a similar comparison here is Saquon. Just like in the NFL, it's like you love watching this guy put up numbers, but it's like, is he going to be able to maintain a career in this league that's so demanding every single night? And on top of that, Brandon Ingram really blossomed when he got here, but they just lost Lonzo, who was really their facilitator. It seemed like Zion and Lonzo, that was like the duo. So I don't know if I see this team being great, but they lost Steven Adams too. But I think they'll be all right, potential play-in team, but I think Zion not being a consistent starter is going to really hurt this team in the long run.
21st, you got the Washington Wizards. If I'm going to be honest, there's not really much to talk about with this team. They didn't really make any big splashes in free agency, trades. Draft night, just casually did their own thing.
Yeah.
But, last year they kind of were a surprise going 34-38, but it's all just going to depend on the big story this year, if Beal will stay and be a Wizard for the rest of the year, or if Beal might get traded and for some picks or some young guys at the deadline. But yeah, Kuzma, as you said, that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because how in the Lakers he kind of just got overlooked just because they just somehow always had a better guy than him, and no knock on him, like he's still good, but he never really got to show who he can be in the role that they've always wanted him to be.
Yeah, no. For next up, we got the Raptors. Just losing Kyle Lowry to the Heat. Honestly, I think Siakam's next to go. Fred VanVleet just recently signed that big contract, but I don't know. I mean, they got Goran Dragic, which is solid. Scotty Barnes, I think too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think this team won their ring. Kawhi left afterward. I think they were just happy to get their ring, and I think they're kind of just headed towards that rebuild. I'm pretty confident Siakam's going to be involved in going somewhere else here pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. At 19th, you got Charlotte Hornets. They went wrong already, signing Scary Terry to that 4-year, $97 million. Way overpaid, in my opinion. I mean, just because you already have LaMelo, who's supposed to be your franchise guy. And weird move by Michael Jordan, but apparently Jordan knows something we don't. But, this Hornets team last year, once LaMelo got hurt, they pretty much went down, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out for them at the end of the year. But this year, they could be another play-in team, as we're starting to get to the 6th, 15th, which is the average middle of the pack, and those teams now are starting to make in the play-in games to get to the playoffs. So all these teams coming up, it's going to be interesting to watch, fighting for the 7 and 8 seeds.
Next up, we got the Pacers. So for Indy, I think a lot of it revolves around TJ McConnell coming back. In the bubble, dude was one of the better players the NBA had seen, putting up ridiculous numbers. Got injured, but I don't know. We'll see. They drafted Chris Duarte, I think, out of Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
So, that'll be exciting to watch. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to can TJ McConnell run this team or not?
17th, we got the highly anticipated Bulls making some big moves, getting rid of Carter, getting Vucevic, getting Lonzo, and then you already have Zach LaVine, who's a stud, one of the most slept-on players in the league, and not Kyle Lowry. Who am I thinking of? Who else did they get in that Orlando trade?
Chicago they got Lonzo at point this year, but they drafted Io out of Illinois.
That's who it is. Yeah.
Not
in the trade, in the draft, but I think he, last year in college put himself in the conversation for best player of the year. And
right.
I just don't understand. Like back to the Pistons, they got Luka Garza, who's won player of the year in college. And, they obviously are great players, but their game doesn't transition well. Well, I think all that is just a bunch of crap, just because these guys know how to play basketball at a high level already. And just because now they're in the NBA, they won't transfer their same skills they had. Right. Yeah, everyone has to get better. But I think Io is going to be a huge guy off the bench for them, when Lonzo, because they pretty much almost same skill set, except Io can shoot a little better.
Yeah, and it's a really similar situation too, going to Illinois, playing in the Big Ten's tough as is, but they really brought that team around. And now he gets drafted by the Bulls, and all of a sudden they got a bunch of players to build around. So, he's going to be playing with a lot of guys that'll teach him stuff. And honestly, Lonzo and him have a pretty similar comparison, So I think that team's going to work out. I think this team's going to be really good this year, and I have a lot of high hopes. Next up, we got the Grizzlies. So they lost Valanciunas, which personally I think is big, but they got Steven Adams too. Mm-hmm. So I think this is gonna meet Ja Morant's game really well. And Xavier Tillman was a late pick in the draft last year. I think that guy got a lot more minutes than what a lot of people thought. They drafted, I think, Zaire Williams, which I think is also a solid pick. But definitely a playing team or potential. I think it could be a playing team. I think it's a potential playoff team as well, but I don't think they're going to go much further than that. But I like how young these guys are, and it seems like Ja Morant, at the age he is already taken, the team under his wing, and they're headed in the right direction for sure.
I'm at 15th. We got the Portland Trail Blazers led by Damian Lillard. Pretty loyal to the franchise. He's one of the few in the NBA now that will stay with his team that drafted him. And all props to Dame. That's why I'm a big Dame fan. He's not ring chasing. But unfortunately, they need to get him some more help if they want to win. McCollum, he's a great player as well. But two guards can't get it done in the league that's starting to get dominated by bigs after the last draft and the upcoming draft.
Definitely.
They definitely need to go out, get a big, maybe deadline, depending on how this team's doing. But this team somehow finds a way to make the playoffs every year, and I expect them to do the same this year.
Coming in at 14th, we got the New York Knicks. So Fournier and Kemba was definitely a big pickup for this team, but I think the question remains is Julius Randle going to be that guy, So we saw him all year kind of go off last year, even had some MVP conversations going around, most improved player, stuff like that. But then the playoffs came and he just wasn't that guy anymore. So I I don't know what that situation was. I think Kemba is going to make his game tremendously better. And Fournier as well is going to help, clear it up for him. But they're such a young team, with Obi Toppin getting drafted last year. The guy kind of showed out, he had a good year.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I could see this team being a playoff team. I just don't think they have it quite yet.
Coming in at 13th, you got the question mark Boston Celtics. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, studs. We know what they're going to do. But after that, who are you going to give the ball to score and, facilitate? It's just kind of up in the air. And that's why I think 13th is a fair ranking for them right now. Going into the year, you don't really know too much about them just because all the question marks, losing Kemba. And
Right.
I don't know. I just think, last year barely scraped in the playoffs and really didn't do too much. So I think it's fair to put him here at 13th.
Definitely. Coming in at number 12, we have the LA Clippers. So I think this team is one of the most iffy teams almost every year. But this year specifically, we know they won't have Kawhi, going under that ACL repair. Also losing Pat Bev and Rondo. I just don't know how this team is going to be consistently successful. You can rely on Paul George, you can rely on other guys, but I don't foresee this team making it out. I feel like there's, like you said, scraping every year. But I don't think this team has it in them to win a ring with what they have at all. I don't think they'll do it.
Coming in at getting ahead of myself there. Coming in 11th, you got Luka Doncic and his Mavericks. High hopes going in for this year, just because Porzingis is finally healthy. Everyone's healthy going in this year, so no setbacks, nothing. And if this team plays how they should on paper, they're a top 10 team. But
Jason Kidd, the head coach too.
Yeah, interesting. Kid's back with the Mavs, and Kid's a point guard, obviously, so he's definitely going to help Luka, and somehow Luka will get better every year with him as head coach. But as you said before you started making this video, Porzingis, I agree, does need to go. Just because, he's still young and valuable, but he's not really doing too much for the Mavericks right now. And I think if you can get Luka a guard and a good forward, you would be better off rather than a power forward center, just because, if Luka has another guard, he can pass to him on the wing that can shoot, do all that. Takes the pressure off Luka's hands and, gives someone else an opportunity to become a star. And, I think Bradley Beal would be a great option there. Put Luka at point guard, Beal at shooting guard, and be really two good guards there. And even John Wall as well, if they want to go a little cheaper. But I think the Mavs do need to make a move and get rid of Porzingis.
Next up, we got the Warriors, which is going to be a really, really exciting team this year, I think. And we know Clay's back, which coming off an Achilles, some people are never the same. But when you're as good as he is, I don't think you can argue that guy's one of the best shooters that's ever played the game. James Wiseman's going to be back coming off the meniscus tear. I think he's going to be solid still. Curry's got to stay healthy. Draymond's got to stay healthy. But I think this team's a serious contender to potentially win a ring this year. They're really back almost like they left off. And I think this team just likes to win. The nature of the team is winning. So, we'll see what they do. But, they drafted Kuminga in the draft too. But I think this team has high hopes, high potentials, and should do very well this year.
Coming in at 9th, we got the Atlanta Hawks, the surprise team of last year. Ice Trae, I think he's a front runner for the MVP this year. They pretty much are running it back as well with the same dudes. And I think it's smart because they have really good chemistry, as you saw in the playoffs. And I think for Trae Young wise, that he knows this team and he knows what he can do and shooting wise, passing wise. And, you don't want to really switch everything up already after one successful year for your superstar like that. And they may not win it all this year, but, it's obviously preseason. They could win it all with what they got. They showed they could win a lot of playoff games last year. But 9th, I think is fair for them. They probably would have been lower if they didn't have that big run last year. But pretty good for them to crack the top 10 here.
Next up, we got the Philadelphia 76ers at 8th. This team right now just seems like a complete mess, trying to figure out what to do with Ben Simmons, what to trade him to keep him. It doesn't seem like he wants to be there, just showed up at practice. We'll see. I think it was big for them to get Andre Drummond, on the veteran minimum contract. This team always seems to win. Joel Embiid, when healthy, one of the best centers in the NBA, arguably, if not the best. I think this team still slips in the playoffs just because they win. Seth Curry, I think, doesn't get the credit he nearly deserves for how much he does with whatever team he's with. But I don't know. We'll see what they do. I think it just comes down to Ben Simmons' worth, what they think he's worth, what he wants to do in his future. I don't think he stays in Philly much longer, though.
I agree with you there. I think he's going to leave Philly, but at 7th, you get the Nuggets. Really interesting team. It's going to be how they perform when Murray comes back after his injury last year. But, I mean, with Jokic, dude's an absolute stud, plays like a point guard as a center. And I just expect this team to just keep winning. They got Michael Porter Jr., who they just signed to a big contract in the offseason. And I think their success is going to depend on him, not Jokic. If you're paying him all that money, he's got to play like he's worth all that money. And only one really full season under his belt. He showed like he could be that guy. And it's just going to be interesting to see, I guess, technically his sophomore season because he's actually healthy and hopefully can play through the whole season.
Next up, we got the Miami Heat, who made the big move of getting Kyle Lowry, and Duncan Robinson just got paid, which we knew was coming as well. This team has a lot of depth, and I think if they're gonna ever win a ring, this year's got to be the year. You got Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Victor Oladipo, Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry. Now you've got your group of guys. Bam, you gotta. So I mean, this year's got to be the year they get it done. I just don't know if this team can go late into the playoffs with what they got with injuries and every day, the games and the matchups that you're going to be going against. But we'll see. I guess I have high expectations for them, especially coming in at 6. I would say that's fair. I think after the bubble, everyone wanted to see them win for the most part. And now they've made moves to put themselves in that position to be a winning team. So, I mean, hopefully they can get it done.
And at 5th, you get the Utah Jazz. Very interesting team because after Donovan Mitchell, I mean, there's no clear-cut superstar in this team, but the team chemistry is probably the best in the league, and that's why they're so good every year. Obviously, last year they only lost 20 games, which is pretty good nowadays in the NBA because they're starting to become pretty much half the league could win a ring,
right?
And they pretty much destroyed everyone in the regular season. Or in the playoffs, different story. But not really too much to be said about this Jazz team just because they run it back every year and they show that they have great talent every year. But maybe this is finally the year they can win one.
Coming up 4th, we have the Phoenix Suns. Now, Campaign and CP3 coming back was the make or break on whether or not this team would be successful. Got JaVale McGee too, which personally I think is the guy you need on your bench. He's got all the experience you could ask for in the playoffs and finals and stuff like that. He knows what it's like to win. CP3 just got a taste of a finals. Devin Booker. I think this team could be really, truly, really good. And DeAndre Ayton even last year started making a name for himself come playoff time, putting up a lot of numbers in a lot of different ways. So I wouldn't be surprised, if we saw this team also in the finals again this year. I feel like they pretty much got everyone back that they wanted to get back. And I don't see how they can be any worse.
Coming in at 3rd, we got the LA Lakers. The oldest team in the league for sure. Signing Carmelo, I mean, huge. I think that's a huge signing. Kind of underrated just because he's older and has kind of been scraping to just get back in the league. But another huge move is getting Russ, obviously. Gonna say the big 3 again with Russ, AD, and LeBron. But personally, my expectations of this Lakers team is I don't see them being a 3rd seed or better. I kind of put them in the middle of the pack just because they're going to have to adapt to learn how to play together because they pretty much shook up their whole roster. And I know it's LeBron or some people think he's the GOAT, blah, blah, blah. But until this guy can, actually like lead a team like this year, I think he could start to slowly creep in that conversation. But until he wins 6 rings and 6 tries, he's never going to be my GOAT.
Next up, we got the Brooklyn Nets. Now, I feel like this is a really classic team to talk about. Obviously, they're going to be great. You got Kevin Durant, James Harden, whatever is going on with Kyrie, Blake Griffin still on the team. But I think the person to bring up is their draft pick, Cameron Thomas out of LSU. I think that could have honestly been the steal of the draft, which, the Nets are already as good as they are, but Cameron Thomas all preseason putting up numbers. This guy's a scorer. That's really what he is, and he plays with a bunch of scorers. So I think in the future that he could be one of the better players the league sees incoming.
And coming in at first, we got the Milwaukee Bucks. It's only right to put them at number 1 just because they are the defending champions. And, Giannis, best player in the league last year by far. I mean, dude dominated in the playoffs, regular season. And they just re-signed Grayson Allen. DiVincenzo's out for a little bit here. Chris Middleton's kind of banged up. So, they're not all healthy at the start, but once this team, gets back to their full potential, they'll be a top 5 team all year for sure. I mean, just because you have Giannis on your team, and in the preseason, I saw him, he was, shooting. So that's another huge thing that you're going to have to learn to defend on Giannis, because last year you were able to leave him wide open, but this year, obviously he worked on shooting the offseason and obviously needed to add that to his game just so, they would have to guard it and respect that. But that'll wrap up today's video. If you like that, we'll be doing lots more NBA content now that the season is just going to get started. Expect power rankings every week, 2 weeks from us, and we'll start to preview some good matchups in that month coming up. And our next video will be our playoff predictions, so make sure you come back for that one. But before you go, like, comment, subscribe, and until our next video, Bench Buddies are out.
She never called back.